Common Council for September 20th. Could we please have roll call?
Presiding Officer, Mayor Dean Vonderhyde.
Present.
Councilmember John Schrader.
Here.
Councilmember Chad Leakin.
Present.
Councilmember Dave Hurst.
Here.
Councilmember Paul Lori.
Present.
Councilmember Kevin Manley.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Eckerly.
Here.
Councilmember Philip Mundi.
Here.
City Attorney Renee Kabrick. Okay. Clerk Treasurer Kirsten Knies, present. In order to have a quorum, a majority of the council members must be in attendance. All of the members are in attendance, which is a majority. Therefore, there is a quorum for this meeting.
If you would, please take a moment for personal reflection. Thank you, and would all that are able, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I just want to recognize we have today the Boy Scout Troop 185 with us. Thank you for coming to visit us here at the City Council meeting. Do you want to make any statements or introduce anyone there? Or?
We can stay and state our names if you like.
That'd be great, Brad. Thank you.
Sam Connor from Troop 185. I'm Clinton Cheddar from Troop 185. I'm Gavin Knight, I'm from Troop 185. I'm Leah Thomas and I'm from Troop 185. I'm Joseph Livia, Troop 185.
The reason they're here is for the Citizens of the Community Merit Badge. It's an Eagle required merit badge.
I'm Grant Bearcalls, Troop 185. I'm Captain Ramos from Troop 185. I'm John Rossman from Troop 185. I'm George Hackett from Troop 185.
I'm Kyle Dramas, an Assistant Scoutmaster of Troop 185.
Well, we appreciate you coming, and I wish you the best in achieving your merit badge. The minutes of the last meeting of August 23rd were sent out. Was there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they were presented.
Motion from Nancy to approve the minutes. Do I have- Phil? Phil seconds. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next on the agenda is department presentation from City Engineer Chad Herm.
Good evening.
Evening, Chad.
Presentation might be a strong word, but I do have the privilege of addressing you this evening. So, as many of you may or may not know, the city engineer we work with every department within the city of Jasper. We do projects for literally every one of them. In conjunction with that, we also do many projects that are internal to our department alone. However, one of those projects that we've been working on for the past several years was the ESRI transition, transitioning from our old GIS via AutoCAD map to the ESRI ArcGIS map system. We have completed that transition. All the departments are now up and running, entering their own data. They do still bring it back to us to field check and modify some of the parameters in their databases. So, but that is up and running.
That's been 3 years.
Yeah, Yeah, from the time we first started doing it, we're in our third contract year with the project. So, as I said, we do projects with every department. Street department, we've done in the past 6 months to 8 months, we've done HRJ Lane Power Drive project. We've done Holy Family, or in the process of doing Holy Family. That is the reconstruction of 4 streets within the Holy Family area. Eisenhower, Hassenauer, Hoaksong, and Terrace, involving new storm sewers, new curb and gutter, reconstructed street. In the case of Hoaksong, I believe, was an old concrete street that we completely removed and replaced. And then resurfacing of Eisenhower Terrace and Hassenauer. So that project, we're in the 4th Street at current Terrace Drive, replacing curb and gutter, driveways. Following that, we will move in, mill, and resurface everything out there. So.
Water line and sewer lines in those areas, those all up to our current standards?
Yeah. Actually, prior to us coming in, the wastewater department went through, contacted all the property owners in the neighborhood, verified that all our sewers were in good shape, and then we had a program actually where they paid for a portion of lateral repairs for those property owners that were interested in doing that. So, and then the water department, they actually replaced some water lines in Justin and confirmed that all theirs was
We took
up
the
to.
same approach as we did on Newton, I think, didn't we not? Try to make
That's
sure
correct.
all the infrastructure.
Yeah, when we came through on Newton Street, we did the same thing. That is correct. So that is nearing completion. One project that we're just now starting, Dewey Street. We're doing kind of the same thing in Dewey Street from 13th to 14th and 14th to 15th. Replacing, reinstalling storm sewers, curb and gutter, sidewalks, and redoing the street in those areas as well. All 3 of those projects were community crossing matching grants. So based on what was qualifying on those projects, we were able to get 50% grants to do those projects. Now, Holy Family ended up a little higher than what we had anticipated bid-wise, so we only ended up with about a third of that one. But working with the Parks Department, we just recently bid the mill deck replacement for them. At the last meeting, we bid some drainage improvements at the parklands, and we're currently working on parking improvements at the Hobbit Center and bathrooms and shelter house facility at Beeler Park with them. Water Department.
Parklands be under some kind of a warranty for that project?
Not anymore. And it's not necessarily a construction issue. It's something that we've determined over the last couple years. There's 3 areas back on the eastern portion where water ends up running over the walking path. In the winter, it freezes. So we're installing some storm sewers and some inlets to catch that. They're not necessarily warranty items. So, parks, yeah. Gas and Water Department, we've redone water lines in 3rd Avenue from Meridian Road out to Gun Club Road in the past year. We've done the Main Street water project. That was an extension of the downtown revitalization. So we redid water lines from 9th Street to the square and from 5th Street down to 2nd Street and into Newton, South Newton. We are currently working on a water line project with the water department in Mill Street from 9th to 15th Street. So that will be coming up in the next several months. Also working on some projects that we've received federal or state grants for as well. We're working on our phase 2 of our multi-use trail path. This is an extension from the new driving range and trailhead at Buffalo Trace Golf Course where we completed the last project all the way to Northwood Avenue via 30th and, or all the way to St. Charles via 30th Street and Northwood Avenue. We're working with VS Engineering on that particular project and coordinating that through our department.
Where's that at?
So it'll run along Mill Street, along the north edge of the driving range property, then north out to 30th Street via a utility easement we currently have for water line. From 30th, yeah. And this includes both new off-road trail and in some locations we're looking at some road diet and using existing right-of-ways for that trail. So another one that we're just now getting started with, we did receive a federal grant through NDOT for our Mill Street improvements. These are drainage road improvements from 30th Street to 36th Street. The intent of this project is to bring that section of roadway up to a more industrial standard, improve the drainage. And this is part of our first phase of any kind of connector on the north side of town for industrial traffic to connect to a potential mid-states corridor. So years ago, the city and the county did a joint project north of 36th Street on Mill. This will be somewhat similar to that.
Has that been bid out already?
No, that particular project, we haven't even awarded a contract for the design yet. We've selected a consultant, and we're now going through negotiations on the contract price. So this is like I said, this is a federal highway grant. This is a July of 27 is when the fiscal year begins on this particular project. So for the construction, yeah. Some of it's available currently for design and right-of-way purposes, but construction won't be available until fiscal year 28. So those are some pretty long-term projects. Going forward,
Those projects is that if you do not, you have to have a good long-range plan around your roadways. And I think that's what helped us get this, is that this was in our master plan.
we had actually originally had this as part of a much larger project, broke it down into 3 phases. So going forward, the next phase we'll be working on will be 36th Street from St. Charles, Portersville Road over to 231. That'll include some trail work, some intersection improvements. The roadway itself there is in good shape, so we felt this was an easy one for us to handle in-house. So we'll be doing that one ourselves, or we intend to. And then the second phase of that will be from 231 down to Mill Street to tie into the Mill Street project. So that will be phase 2, and we'll be looking for a federal highway grant for that one as well. So, so obviously we've been doing a lot of work downtown. Phase 1 of the downtown revitalization project is nearing completion. Anticipate the completion date on that is October 27th. Substantial completion is next Friday, I think the 29th. So substantial completion-wise, they've everything is in place, functioning. So the things remaining will be punch list items that we'll go through. There's some repairs that have to be made that have come up during inspections. The remainder of the landscaping and plantings. You see the striping is getting done currently. So they have until October 27th to complete all those items. I know we have some things going on the 13th, but we anticipate it's going to be pretty much tied up by then. So going forward, phase 2 of that project is a continuation of the improvements from 7th Street to 9th Street and from 5th Street down to 3rd. Be more or less an extension of Main Street adjacent to City Hall and Main Street adjacent to finishing touches. So we're in the early stages of that with the consultant going through the review and design process on that.
Third, as far as it goes.
We're going to the state highway at this point. We have looked into and have started putting together plans for 2nd Street down to 1st as well. I guess that would be considered phase 3. So currently NDOT is doing work in Newton Street and 3rd on 164 there. We've been coordinating with them on Jackson and 3rd and Main and 3rd on improvements at those locations. So don't want them to do something and then us come in and just tear it right back out to meet our needs. So in addition to that project, we did some storm sewer work in-house. US 231, Highway 164 storm sewer project. That was a grant through the Indiana Finance Authority for state highway utility work. We did get about a third of that money back in grants. And that was basically the removal and replacement of all the old clay storm sewers within those 2 sections of highway to bring those up to current standards to keep ahead of their highway project. So we're doing it in-house. Yeah. We did get some help with the federal highway grant. But we submit them all, well, I shouldn't say all of them, but we've submitted all those ourselves. Yeah, so in regard to that, when we do submit for grants and these state projects like this, we have to have what's called an ERC, or an Employee of Responsible Charge. Up until last November, I was the only one that the city had. Not for any other reason other than I was the only one that had it. Since then, Scott Schnell in our office has acquired that designation, and I believe Jeff Tising and Bob Sunderman with the street department have as well. So that gives us a little more flexibility in the event that somebody becomes ill or something happens. So
Or just spreading the love and the number of projects.
yeah. Yeah, no, we're all involved with every project, but it's the initial or the primary contact. So, so the other, and one more thing we have been doing is systematically installing sidewalks along Newton Street. We've done 2 phases of that up to this point. We're looking at phase 3 from 36th Street north. The specific terminus hasn't been determined. We're looking at getting up to the stoplight or perhaps a little further at Badenstrasse with the next phase. However, that is undesigned and unfunded at this point. So that is just some of the stuff that we've been doing in the last 6 to 8 months. So.
Is the state highway doing the sidewalks?
They are doing curb ramps, the ADA ramps. So the state considers the ramps their responsibility and the sidewalks ours. So we will more than likely, once they come through, we will probably come through at some point and upgrade the sidewalks to match into what they've done. They are replacing some curb and gutter out there as well that's in really bad shape. So, another storm sewer project that we're just started working on, and Mr. Mundi will appreciate this. We're in early stages of replacing storm sewers through the J.C. Park and Armory property, as well as Bartley and Reese Street and Brescher Street area. So we're looking to upgrade and upsize the storm sewers in that neighborhood as well. So.
Well, the collapse this year down at the.
Yeah.
Armory.
Yeah. So.
I do have a question on that.
Yeah.
Degree software. Is
Yeah.
that just internal use only, or?
Well, yes and no. So if you get online and look at our zoning map or any of our street maps on the website, that's all been done with Esri.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have gone to all of our mapping. We're converting over to.
So it's more designed for like more internal use with the different
So-
departments, correct?
Yeah, so each department has designated individuals that, most of them use tablets or iPads, some use phones, but they'll go around with GPS. They can locate, say,
Once it's located, it's on that map.
yeah, everything is cloud-based, so when they enter it, it goes to the database. Now, Jeff here in the office has the final say on the database, but
They all
they,
existing lines and stuff like that
yeah,
have transferred over to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's all on there then?
yeah. So we're they're in the process of putting all the meters into Esri, all the manholes, all the lines, and then you can incorporate all kinds of data with those items in Esri. You can, like the date it was installed, what material it is, condition it is. You can attach photos to it. I mean, there's a whole plethora of things you can.
It makes all
Yeah,
that
it's
in between departments so much
yeah. So then
simpler, correct?
any department can pull it up on their phone. They don't have editing ability for other departments, just their own, but they can see if there's a gas line or a sewer line in the location they're looking at. So
Congratulations on getting that done. That's awesome.
it took us a while. It was a learning process for everybody. So
That's one of the implementations and challenges with a project like that. It was a huge project across all departments, and public
Yeah.
wouldn't know it.
if you're
Visible, it's something you can visibly see, but it helps us in efficiencies and it helps us in accuracy.
department, we've got sign inventories in there, we got trash routes in there, snow routes. So we do a lot of mapping for them.
And projects now, right? We got
Yeah.
a whole, we got
Oh,
a
yeah.
problem here somewhere, it gets marked in there, so each department knows what's their responsibility to go out and fix it.
From a
Spot.
from an accident response position, say we have a spill out here, we can go into our system and we can backtrack or track down where that goes, which manholes it goes into from what location, and if we find a leak somewhere, we can backtrack it up the system based on the flow directions. So remember the redistricting, that was all done through Esri as well, so.
Yeah, that was a very impressive. I mean, it reminded me of like a scene from a movie. I mean, it was that impressive, the map capability.
We took something that was gonna take multiple meetings, multiple days, and did it in 45 minutes, I think. I mean,
We're just scratching the surface on what we can do with it. I mean, it's, yeah, so. I guess, yeah, any questions?
Thanks, Chad.
All right, thank you.
Chad?
Okay, next on the agenda is ordinance number 2023-25. It's establishing a fund for the American Rescue Plan, Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Could I have a motion to read 2023-25 in full or by title only?
Make a motion to read by title only, please.
A motion from Paul to read by title only.
I'll second.
Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Would the clerk treasurer please read ordinance number 2023-25 by title only?
Ordinance number 2023-25, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, establishing a fund for the American Rescue Plan Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, amending Chapter 1.114 ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Could I have a motion to approve the ordinance in the first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Nancy?
I'll second.
Second from John. Any further discussion on this?
I had a couple of questions. How much is in the fund currently, and the proposed uses for that? Because it looks like we have to kind of obligate the funds by the end of next year, but spend them all by the end of 2026.
I can tell you that it was brought to my attention that our current ordinance, 2021-14, which established a single account for the purpose of receiving and distributing the ARPA funds, originally indicated that they had to be spent by the end of 2024. And then in speaking with Renee, I learned that in January of 2022, the U.S. Department of Treasury had issued its final rule, which changed those terms. So now the funds need to be earmarked by the end of 2024, spent by the end of 2026.
So basically, we have to have a plan.
So we have already had a plan. We have, we spent some on the downtown, some went to the HELP grant, and some went to, it's either Holy Family or HRJ, Holy Family. So some of it has already been spent, but the bulk of it, the HELP grant, the 1.065 million, won't be spent until it's been earmarked for the Regional Wellness Center, so it won't be spent by the end of 2024. So we had to amend the ordinance to make sure that we were within the guidelines.
So then it's 1.064.
065.
Any other questions?
Nope.
If not, I have a motion from Nancy and a second from John. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Twenty 23-25 is passed.
Have a second, third reading on that?
Yes.
Yeah, we were only going to do a first reading on this at this time.
So we can do both of those next two readings next
We
month.
could do both at the next, yeah. Okay. Ordinance number 2023-26. And this is a ordinance establishing a designated outdoor refreshment area, and it's available for the first reading. Could I have a motion to read the ordinance on the first reading in full or by title only?
Move to read by title only.
Kevin to read by title only.
I'll second.
I have a second from Paul. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Are we, is that just to read it?
This is for reading it by title only. Okay. Okay. So would the clerk treasurer please read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 2023-26, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, establishing a designated outdoor refreshment area, downtown Jasper Social District.
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the ordinance on the first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Kevin?
I will second.
I have a second from Paul. Further discussion? Any,
I have a question. I'm very concerned about having the DORA in effect during the Strassenfest because, well, first of all, that's being promoted as a family-friendly event. And to me, it's not very family-friendly if you can go to headquarters, for example, and get a highball and walk up into the fest, walk around, and then, of course, at some point dispose of your cup. But I was hoping that we could carve out the 4 days of the Strassenfest and exempt that time period from this ordinance. And I don't think it's written in here as that way, but that's my hope, and that's how I would want to vote for it. So I know there's some representatives here from the beer garden, or from the J.C.'s, they might want to speak to that also.
I'm
Mayor, my name
gonna
is-
have a public hearing on
Sorry.
but, so if we would wait till that.
Okay.
Can I just give you some of our concerns that maybe you guys can take and,
Do that during the public hearing portion.
We'll have it here in yeah. I just want to get.
Notified of this door thing just recently, so that's why.
Okay. And I thought we had Dora as a public hearing.
I don't see it on the agenda. I don't think, is it?
No, it is not.
Then I would, yeah, I would open it up. Okay. I thought it was on the agenda. It was
On
something.
one of the versions.
Yeah, okay. So then I would open it up to public hearing. Okay.
those of you that don't know me, my name is Phyllis McInich. I'm the current sitting president for the Jasper J.C.'s. We were informed about Dora right around Strassenfest time, so we've had a little bit of time to be able to discuss this as a club. Our major concerns are, number one, we hold the liquor license for the Strassenfest. How is it going to affect us if there is underage drinkers outside of our beer garden? You know what I mean? Well, when we called and talked to excise about it, they said if we're the ones holding the liquor license and they are closest to our area, we would be the ones responsible for that fine. So that is one of those things, because I mean, people could throw it outside the fence and give it to kids, or, you know, things like that.
Well, the fence wouldn't exist, is our understanding. Is
Yes.
kind of what the whole plan was to be.
And then, I mean, us having the fence up is what makes it possible later in the evening for it to stay family-friendly, you know, because we can keep everybody corralled. Another thing is if you can go inside headquarters and pay $2.50 for a beer, why are you going to come to the beer garden and pay $5 for a beer? You know, and that goes into our profits, which this is the only profitable thing we do all year long, which allows us to give lots of money back to the community. So that was our concern, is how Dora being able to walk around is, number one, going to affect us with excise, and number two, how it's going to affect our profits.
Plus, there's limitations. Our understanding is about the quantity. We wouldn't be able to sell pitchers anymore. We can only have 16-ounce cups. You can only have, you know, certain standards, plus the wristband guidelines that are part of this map of the Dora district. That's part of the state, part of their rules. How would we be able to police it in a district of whatever proportion it's going to be? Because our beer garden is pretty manageable now. It's 4th to 5th Street on Main. You know, we got a pretty good idea how excise loves us. We love excise.
And
I've
it's
been part
easy
of-
for the police to be able to patrol and, you
Yes.
know, all that.
The district expanding it concerns us. For during the Strassenfest, we're all for
Yeah.
it for the rest of the time.
For the rest of the
It
time, I
makes
think it's
perfect
great.
sense. But for our quantity of people that come, and it's like Jasper Reunion Day during Strassenfest, so
Yeah.
they really do come, which is fantastic. We have very little come. We close by midnight, you know, I mean, by 12:30, everybody's gone, so we're not open late. But I think it's later than what most of them, you know, by 9 o'clock, a lot of these other districts might be anticipating shutting down, or most of the events that Jasper has planned will be, they won't be later at night, which the fest is for those 3 days for us. Ours is really only 3 days, Thursday,
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday. So we were just hoping that that would be considered. We're just concerned about our ability to police it. It seems like it could get out of hand for us.
Yes.
Josh, do you have any comments on that, or? You recognize their concern, or?
Sure, no, of course. So, appreciate the board's time. So a couple things about that. First and foremost, the beer garden will still operate as the beer garden has. It'll still be fenced-in area. There'll still be police and you have one entrance and exit, is that correct?
Well, now we're
Well,
allowed to let people go.
Go
Excise is allowed us to let people leave by
but they-
any exit,
by
but
any-
only enter by one.
Yeah.
Okay, but will you still have one exit, or will you operate?
We will
Yeah.
have one entrance.
We
We'll
have
have
one entrance,
multiple
but
exits.
multiple exits, which we have people standing there guarding those entrances so that no alcohol leaves the premise.
Correct, and since there's no pass-in, pass-outs, any of their beer sales would remain within their tents, and essentially, because they're fenced in, they would be able to operate as their own entity inside the Dora, and are not impacted, and the rules are not applicable to them. People in Dora cups would not be able to walk into theirs. People with Strassenfest cups would not be able to walk out into the district. So while, yes, someone could quite possibly go down to headquarters and walk up the street with them, I truly don't think most of them are going to when the band and the crowd and everything else is still within the confines of the J.C.'s fenced area. Other questions I missed?
No,
maybe?
I think that our biggest concern was, once again, the size of the area. If we could maintain what we've already had, I mean, the beer garden, the fencing has been great. It tells us where we are, you know?
Sure.
And where does our responsibility end, and where does it start? And we have no problem really with what's going on outside the beer garden. That's always been the Strassenfest Committee's responsibility. So as long as we can do that, because we do maintain, like I said, the guards at the gates. We do have guards, we do ID check the people coming in, and on all that situation. And we were concerned that what would happen if, I hate to say it, the gates come down.
Right.
And that's what we were more concerned about.
Unless you're proposing the gates to come down,
We
that's
do-
Oh, God.
in
we
no
don't-
way,
we
that's in
prefer-
no way on the table.
I think it'd be hard to police the action.
That's exactly right. No, again, my understanding is as long as the fence remains and you're doing your entrances and exits for those 3-4 days, you are essentially your own little silo of activity, and nothing regarding the Dora is affected.
So Dora they couldn't take a drink in the,
That's correct. No
Unless,
pass-in, no
unless
pass-ins,
they
no-
decide to let them do it, but they would never do that, I would think. That's right,
We don't want
absolutely.
hard liquor in the beer garden.
Sure.
That's one thing we've been trying to avoid at all costs.
But Josh, you said something like, it's highly unlikely someone would go, let's say, from headquarters or Pub and Grub into the fest. I totally disagree with that. That's very likely that someone would do that because the opportunity's right there. I mean, they could walk around and go to all the booths, go sit at the entertainment area. They could do all of those things with any kind of beer or hard liquor, whatever's allowed within the Dora.
They could technically do that now.
You are correct, and my
No, they
intention was,
Out of a Pub and Grub now,
But you could bring it from home.
that license to do that.
You could bring it from home, I can,
You could, but that's not what I'm talking about.
headquarters does.
my point that I was attempting to make is that their concern about them losing their entire clientele was not going to happen, and that maybe there is going to be a dozen few that are utilizing
Oh, how many?
from going, well, I don't know, and you don't either until we
No.
take a look at this. So we can talk about what all the hypotheticals are, other than I can tell you that as long as they keep their fence up and they maintain the security and the police force, there's no pass-ins, pass-outs, we can work out to where they're going to be a standalone operation during those 3 days, and they're not going to be impacted by the DORA.
That's all.
I think that answered their question, and I'm good with that because there would be no beer brought in or brought out of the beer garden. They can operate as they always have. But that still leads me to the other concern about people walking around with open containers at the rest of the fest, which is truly the family area of the festival. The beer garden is the adult area. That's under control, but the family area really concerns me about people walking around with open containers of liquor that they've been served in a Dora cup and just walking around the whole fest.
But to Mr. Schrader, whomever's point was, they can currently do that. Right now, as the current excise law exists, I could take a 30-pack of Busch Light down there and you couldn't stop me from doing anything.
You could do that, but that's a little bit more unhandy than just going in pub and grub and just getting a drink in a Dora cup and walking out the door and walking down to the fest.
But the Dora Cup is served by a licensed bartender who is trained to recognize intoxication. They're only allowed to serve them 2 of those mixed drinks, and they have certain by ounce levels of those drinks they're allowed to serve. So at most, any person could be walking around as they exit that building, having purchased them legally from Oink or whomever, 2 individual servings.
Well, they could go into Oink, they could go into pub and grub, they could go down to headquarters. Now they're at 6 drinks because they have the right to do that.
Sure, and that person could also have a cooler.
Probably wouldn't let them in the beer garden anymore. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
On Nancy's note, though, too, I mean, if it's just a cup, what's gonna keep them from walking to their car after they've had their 2 drinks and pouring it in their cup and taking it back to the fest?
People are gonna find a way, either way.
They will. I mean, I would just assume, though, that we just carve out the Strassenfest as not being part of the DORA. I just feel like we, as a community, are trying to provide a family-friendly atmosphere for this event, and I personally don't feel like I want people walking around with alcohol, whether they bring it from home or whether they have their accessibility of getting it from a local bar or carrying it out of the beer garden, which they're not allowed to do.
That's all, our biggest
Yeah.
concern was that
Your questions were answered, yeah.
and then let this go and expand outward. We really have a policing issue and under our concern, other than if we're gonna be our own little island, we are tickled.
Yeah, after 40 years, we have it kind of down pat, so,
Do a good job.
thank you.
That's right. Can we get your names? I don't
Oh, I'm Phyllis Mackinich.
Say it into the microphone.
I am Phyllis Mackinich, the current president.
And I'm Scott Maneely, and I've been part of the beer garden since it was on 7th and Jackson. If that tells you anything, how long I've been with the beer garden, but, no, I think that's answered our problem, that as long as that's the way you guys were gonna treat it, because excise told us, until cities start doing things, they have no idea what they're going to do. So we're kind of.
It's new to the entire state.
We're all playing around with it, but, I think it's play as you go, but if we're gonna treat it like an island, we are static.
Well, Josh, I'm gonna ask, can we carve it out like Nancy's wanting done for the Strassenfest?
That's my understanding, but we can, well, let me walk back. I misunderstood your question.
What she's saying is that would not be allowed during the Strassenfest.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
So the question is would it be 362 days of the year or whatever?
Basically.
If you chose to do that, yes. The ordinance is not currently written as that.
Could amend it.
You certainly could.
Or table it.
And you guys can make recommendations for the second reading, for changes to be made at the second reading.
I just feel like we've worked so hard to keep the Strassenfest a very nice event. And I've been to other festivals where they allow drinking all the way around, through the whole, and everything's fenced in because Indiana requires that. But to me, I don't know, it made it more of an adult fest instead of a family fest by doing that.
I have to interject too, and like John said, you can do it now already, but look at the West Side Nut Club, one of the biggest of fancy. They don't really promote that by any means either. They have a little beer garden area and such, and while they have a lot more West Franklin bars that are lining their street, you just don't see much of it down there. And
Yeah.
they try not to promote that either.
Well, currently, you cannot carry a drink out of a bar and go into the street. No,
Right, if they have a carryout license.
well, unless you have that kind of a three-way license, yeah.
But I mean, I'm there again, I find it, the West Side Nut Club is another masters of running a festival. And that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about when the district is another time of the year. We're just talking about the
I'm only talking about those 3 days.
Does any other council members have a viewpoint that they'd like to share?
Have a thought that I am told, it's my understanding that as people are setting up, tearing down booths at the Strassenfest, that sometimes they enjoy beverages. If you had your DORA in effect during the Strassenfest, that the only way they could do that, if that's what's happening, is that if they bought it from a DORA establishment. So I kind of like what Nancy's point is there, for another reason.
That's true, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Phil, I know you have some concerns also.
But that expands it then to Wednesday to Sunday, correct? Just Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
That's true. Well,
We carve 5 days out then, or 4.
The last 2 years on Fourth, we were set up on Monday and Tuesday now, so.
and that may continue as we move to the square also, because it just seemed to flow better, having people set up and,
It takes more time to set up, doesn't it? I
it-
mean,
one night, it's very confusing. To spread that out among 2 or 3 days seemed to work out well.
Sunday before is where our semi shows up, Sunday before.
And then we are done by usually early,
But-
well, Tuesday we're done.
Why don't we just carve out a Sunday to Sunday?
But yours is always water, right? You're just drinking water during the construction? I
Drinking any beer during.
Water and Diet Coke.
That's right.
Josh, could we just do a Sunday to Sunday?
So I am hearing, at least that we consider a revision to the proposed ordinance 2023-26, revision including language that would restrict the DORA
What's this,
being in,
would you restrict or would you just suspend?
suspend the DORA during that week.
And that way, if we did that, the bars would also know during that time frame, they're not serving out of DORA cups and no one's leaving their establishment with an open container.
Sure, and I have no dog in this fight, so whatever the council decides is completely fine with me. I think the pushback we will end up getting, or the issue that is going to become, is that the Strassenfest does not occur on the same days every year, and the ordinance and/or excise is going to require us, my assumption, to have specific start dates and end dates that will never be the same, or rarely be the same.
You could make it as vague as just to say, upon the council's consideration, can be suspended
First
from.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of August.
I don't know if you're going to be able to get away with vague with ABC
That's right.
or excise.
Well, perhaps we ask ABC for their recommendation on how to word that then.
Yeah, so
They're going to ask for an exact date. Again, whatever the council decides to do, I think it's a slippery slope when we start saying it's 3 days and it's 4 days and it's a week. And it's, well, what about the guy who sets up the Porta Johns? And I understand your concern regarding it's a family-friendly atmosphere, but I mean, the fest does begin with a tapping of the keg on the very main stage. And
No, it doesn't.
well, excuse
It's in the beer garden.
Right, but they carry the keg from the main stage through the entire fest to the bar, or excuse me, to the beer garden in which they do that.
And that is why we put
So,
in a family room that is there until 9 PM, where they can take their beer out into the family room, sit down with their families, eat, converse, all that until 9 PM.
We could argue this forever, but that's just my opinion, and I just wanted to state my opinion this evening.
we're going to look at
I appreciate that.
that might be able to fit into this for the second reading then. We'll make those revisions.
I think it's a great idea myself, because I believe what Nancy's saying is true. I mean, I've always been, we take our grandkids and, just a lot of kids running around there. I don't think it's a good place for it. So I agree with what she's saying there.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to this? Jane?
Do I need to come up there?
Yes, please.
Sorry, I haven't been here for a long time.
We may know who you are, Jane, but if you would identify yourself.
And also, I'm a member of CARES, and we're very concerned as well about having activities for youth and young people in this county and town that do not have alcohol involved. And Strassenfest has managed to handle it by having the beer garden the way it's set up. The rest of the activities are clean and pure. If somebody carries it in, that's their issue, okay? They get caught, tough, But we don't need every activity for youth to have alcohol in it. A youth can't have it, alcohol. a youth can't have alcohol. So why do we want activities for youth and family with alcohol, unless there's a certain kind of restriction? So I agree with Nancy. First of all, I think Strassenfest has improved a lot. But my concern is, and I grew up here, and I like my Manhattans, so it's not like I'm a teetotaler. I am not. I just think we need to think reasonably about the example we provide to children. And there are times we do not need alcohol. So if you can amend it to specify the time, I think it'd be great. I'm not really in favor of people walking around and drinking. I think we have enough issues with alcohol, marijuana, everything else. Vapes can have marijuana in them. Alcohol, open cup, I mean, but for Nancy's point, I agree. I think you set it up. I think you keep and maintain the integrity of Strassenfest and help our kids see times with no alcohol. I think it's important. Okay?
Appreciate your statement.
So can we just amend this?
So I think you can vote to exclude the fest, and then Renee said that she'll work on figuring out with the ABC how to make that happen.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to this?
Will there be a public hearing?
Well, I think we've always accepted public input, I think.
Yeah.
To make revisions.
I don't think that there's an actual need for a public hearing, other than we do.
Council could,
And we could quite simply table it until the exact language is hammered out, too.
We may have the people that support DORA, unfortunately, maybe they want to put an input at the second and third hearing, so maybe.
That's true.
yeah, we can do that. That's.
I guess there's two ways to look at it. I mean, we could make a motion to approve this and excluding Strassenfest that week of in a future reading, or we could table it to the next meeting where that language would be included.
Going to week of, or are we doing Strassenfest? Because there's
I think the week,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because like Chad mentioned, there are people that set up their booths on.
but what he, not with Dora, they couldn't.
If it's in a door, they can't.
What?
No.
If you establish a DORA.
You can only have the liquor that's from a approved bar, a permitted.
Does that stop the private homeowners that live in this district from drinking on their front porch without a cup from a DORA?
Not on their front porch. But if they,
Onto the sidewalk, I guess, is that?
yeah.
But Scott, to answer your question, it does not let them take an alcoholic beverage around the fire pit that they've brought from their own home. They would have to have that in a Dora cup from one of the approved liquor establishments.
Again, all these,
We've had this discussion numerous times.
I'm trying to feel this thing out. That's why they did a survey of the residents in the area as well, to try to find out what was the situation. So with that, how do you want to proceed? Again, you said the options. We could amend it.
That's what I'd like to
forward.
Keep it going.
Thank you.
Yeah, first thing, I need to close the public hearing.
Renee pointed out that this is not a public hearing. We are just accepting public input.
Okay. All right.
You want to retract your motion?
I didn't make the motion, did I?
You did.
Kevin made the motion and Paul seconded it.
Oh. We've been here a while.
Yeah, that's right.
Prepared to vote no until, if we're going to continue with the vote. I'd like to see the language hammered out. I'll probably support it as amended, but until then, I'm going to vote no.
Push it out another month is all.
And truly, I think those that are truly wanting to push it through aren't worried about doing this by Christmas. It was by January. So if it's not in effect by Christmas, I don't think that's a make or break for any of the activities going on downtown. But I think the last I heard someone say January to implement it would be fair to get all these wrinkles ironed out.
I think Renee would like to add some input now, if we can hear her.
Yeah, we can, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
I can't, I have to remove my headphones, so when you can hear me, I can't hear you. Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yes?
yes.
You'll have to nod. Okay, great. I just wanted to say that if you do want to take a vote tonight, you can vote to approve it on first reading with an amendment. So if there's, for example, if you want the amendment to be to exclude, the DORA or close, for lack of a better term, close the DORA for the period of Strassenfest, then you can vote that way. You can say, we're going to vote to approve on first reading with the proposed amendment. Then at the next meeting for the second reading, I will include the language that you voted on.
Okay. So the motion would have to change, though.
Okay, I'll change the motion. I'll make a motion that we approve, what's the ordinance, 2023-27?
26.
26, I'm sorry, with amendment of the Sunday to Sunday, the week of the Strassenfest. If we can get by without a date, then that, would fit. The Sunday to Sunday of the week of the Strassenfest, we would amend it and would not have a DORA in effect during that time.
I like the word Paul used, would suspend.
Suspend the DORA.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, that's okay.
Suspend the DORA.
Okay, so we have a motion to suspend the DORA during the week of Strassenfest.
Sunday to Sunday. I want
Sunday to
that in
Sunday.
there, so- Because people start setting up on Sundays.
And tear down.
Yeah, and tear down.
And I would second that motion, just like before.
I have a second from Paul. Any other discussion?
I got one question again. Josh is probably gonna come to you. So, a person can't bring a cooler to the fire pit?
Not with DORA.
Got back to Scott's thing, the parade and things like that.
But we're suspending DORA Sunday to Sunday.
Is the map even up with what the DORA district?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we have. I thought they could still bring their own.
Yeah, we don't know if we've got it in electronic form that you can put it up.
We can give you a copy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a map available.
Can you,
Well, I mean, since we're carved out, it doesn't matter, but I live downtown, so I don't know if I'm included in the
you're not in the DORA, Scott? Yeah, no, we specifically stayed outside of residential areas. When they drew it in there, the few that are inside happen to be on the second or third story of buildings downtown. And those were the residents that were surveyed in there. And I believe it was a 95% sounds great, and 5% said put it in.
I guess I'd like to say something. The reason, she's still talking?
Renee, I'm gonna have to mute you.
Okay. Why I'm in favor of the DORA is because there's going to be limits. I know that KJ John's going to open a pizza place down there, Pub and Grub. If somebody gets a drink and they take it to the fire pit, I don't want to, me personally, I don't want to see them sitting there with a cooler with 25 beers in it and they sit there and overindulge. A beer or so sitting around the fire down there, to me, seems like that's acceptable. And I don't think that's a problem. And I think it would limit some of that by having the DORA, people would be more responsible with that than they would be with actually just taking their coolers and things like that down there. That's just my opinion.
And I struggle with the hours that we've got laid out for it now, although I'm willing to compromise here for a year and see how we do, but shutting it off at 9 o'clock, Sunday through Sunday, all week long, and all along, my contention's been, we're trying to get the Astra up and running again. They have bands, they have whatever else, so you go eat at one of the 10 establishments. Maybe you leave and you take your beer with you up walking to the Astra. We just spent several $1 million fixing up the downtown. The Astra lets out at 10:30. You want to pour a beer, pick up a beer before you leave there and go sit at the fire pit, go sit on the swings, go to one of the conversation cubicles on there, and we can't do that legally now. You have to go back into an establishment that may or may not be open after 9 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday evening. So it's going to be an adjustment phase for everyone, I believe. But, you know, again, that was...
But if we see that as a problem, we can make an adjustment.
We can adjust that, that's right.
We can make an adjustment.
Yeah.
I think we just make the amendment now that you,
Which,
put
that's the
in front of
motion.
us there, you know,
Yeah.
let's decide on that. And then after that, we have to see what goes on as we go down this road here.
We've talked about living with it for a year and then looking at those things like you were talking about, Kevin, and see what's really happening with it.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other questions from the council? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed? Aye.
Passes first reading, 6-1. With the amendment.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, ordinance number 2023-27. This is an ordinance providing for a uniform code for traffic upon the public streets. Could I ask for a motion to consider the ordinance for one reading only?
Make the motion for one reading only.
I have a motion from Paul for one reading only.
I'll second.
Second from Kevin. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Could I have a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I'll make a motion to read by title only.
I have a motion from Dave,
I'll second.
second from John. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The clerk treasurer, please read ordinance number 2023-27 by title only.
Ordinance number 2023-27, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Jasper, Indiana, providing for a uniform code for traffic upon the public streets of the City of Jasper, Indiana, truck routes and load limits, and setting forth truck load limits and street restrictions for the City of Jasper, Indiana, amending Chapter 9.33, truckload limits and street restrictions.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2023-27?
So moved?
Ed?
Ed,
I'll second.
second from Kevin. Further discussion?
I understand this went through the safety committee. These are recommendations by the safety committee, correct?
Yes.
That's what I was told, so.
I just wanted to make sure that, my question is that there's no fire truck that meets or exceeds these limits, so that we're not allowing any of our own vehicles for going on any of these streets.
I think they were excluded.
Didn't see that.
That exclusion, Chad?
I couldn't find.
Don't apply to those vehicles. These limits do not apply to fire trucks.
Okay. And then my other one is on section 1B. That really applies to the downtown area. And so the part I didn't see written in here is what is the violation or what is a fine? Or does someone get a warning first? Because there are trucks that some semis that are lost on streets in our communities. Sometimes you can tell they're lost, they're frustrated, they can't hardly get out of where they are because their GPS or something led them to where they were. And I've seen that numerous times, we all probably have, but I just want to make sure that in that case that we're not fining them for a violation that they just happened to come across because they got lost for some reason, because they've never been here before. So I didn't know what the fine or the violation, the fine for violating is according to this ordinance.
I don't know what that
I
is.
didn't see that.
Sure, it's in our police.
Follow the suit of the. I think this allows us to collect anything from them if they cause damage.
Collect damages, okay. And I know that happened
I
recently.
think there's gonna be signage up as well, so they should be able to.
Sign everywhere, sign.
They're, even with signage up, we've got some violations, but when there's damage, it's difficult for us to write a ticket or find anybody liable for it. So this gives us some teeth in the police department to be able to write a ticket and collect damages.
I think they would warn somebody first, like.
Yes.
Well, I would hope so. Yeah.
I do have a question about the way this is worded under section 1B. So the first part's pretty straightforward. No truck operating with three or more axles. And then it says, and no vehicle pulling a trailer shall be permitted on the courthouse square. So I drove by the other day, forget what street it was on, but I saw a little VW Beetle and it had a trailer attached to it. Now that thing could easily go around the courthouse square, but by that language, would that be precluded?
It would be included. And I asked the same question about trailers because you see trailers a lot. And what we're finding out is that not everybody's paying attention to the tracking of the trailer. And so the trailers are cutting corners and creating damage, at least have the potential to do so. And that's why they excluded all trailers.
Just so
I
you
asked the
know,
same question,
I
Jeff.
have one sitting outside the building right now, and I came around the square with no problems with the single axle trailer this evening.
I said the same.
Truly in violation of this now?
Because of the weight. I'm not a commercial.
No truck pulling a trailer, no vehicle pulling a trailer.
Pickup.
And no vehicle.
Right, so if you operate like a lawn mowing service and you have a pickup truck with a trailer pulling a lawnmower, you would not be allowed to do that, to answer your question, correct? Okay.
I believe if the truck has two axles.
Need to be that
If the
restrictive.
vehicle has two axles, it is allowed to have a trailer, I believe.
I would think we should clean that up a little.
But that doesn't say that.
Read that way.
And
No vehicle pulling a trailer. Yeah. I think we should clean that up somewhat too, because, I mean, there's people every day like Paul. So we're limiting, by saying it this way, we're limiting another person that can come downtown with their vehicle. And we're wanting to encourage people to come downtown.
But the and no out of there, 3 or more axles.
so you're saying we are wanting to restrict
No.
a truck and a trailer, though?
Well, a bigger truck.
So I would,
Pickup truck with a trailer with a lawnmower in the back, we are not,
I showed up with my pickup truck to pick up furniture at Beckman's myself, rather than have them deliver it on there,
yeah.
potentially be fine.
Town Chow coming back downtown at some point in time.
Food trucks.
I think if it just reads, no truck operating with 3 or more axles, and then cross out and no vehicle, just 3 or more axles pulling a trailer.
But I think
There could be some,
truck with 3 or more axles either.
I think we need
Truck operating.
we need to pause it and look at weight. Because I can bring a 1.5-ton dump truck through here pretty easy that's heavy with something on it, but
It was the navigating of the lane.
it's the navigating of the lanes. I get it. I understand completely. We don't want semi-traffic. We don't want big tag trailers.
I think you gotta get rid of and no vehicle.
Came in here, I went right across it. So there's.
So with that, we would,
I think Renee wanted to make. Is she unmuted?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, here she is.
let me,
Okay,
see what she has to say.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. The intention from my discussions with the engineering department and the street department was to prohibit vehicles, any vehicle with a trailer, because historically, the trailers have been the vehicles, are the parts of the vehicles that have been the problem. If you want to vote differently, that's your prerogative, but I just wanted you to know that that is the recommendation from those other departments.
And Renee, just to confirm, Kevin asked the question earlier, did the safety committee review this?
Sorry, Mayor, my audio's cutting out.
I was asking if the safety committee had reviewed this. I know the departments internally has. Kevin had asked earlier.
Can Kirsten text the question to me?
Jane just did. Yep.
Okay, Jane just did.
No, Jane. I told them.
Yes, the safety committee has reviewed.
Safety committee has reviewed, okay. So, how do you want to move on this? Do you want to,
Well, that's,
So
we have a safety committee. That's, if we don't listen or we don't take into consideration what they believe we should do, there's no reason to have a safety committee, so.
is this just around the square as well? Did we identify outlying streets?
it says Courthouse Square,
Courthouse
including
Square.
6th Street from Newton to Jackson.
New to
So-
Jackson, okay.
And Main from 5th to 7th.
So it's just around the square,
Okay.
those sections.
Well, again, I don't want to shut off a business, Beckman's, from somebody to come pick it up their own furniture if they show up with a trailer.
But they can get it on the
They
street.
can get it on the
behind.
block behind. That's exactly right. That's, I'm just,
That's what they should be doing.
That was the intent.
Or what about, some of the stores getting a delivery from something like that? It's not a semi, but it may be some kind of delivery in a truck that's pulling a trailer, because the semis aren't allowed on the square. So I just don't know if we're limiting too much by saying this.
Yeah, let's think about Strassenfest too. They have some trailers down there.
Suspending this during that time.
And pull your stage up there then.
The intent is the trailer is what's causing the issue, not the weight of the vehicle, correct? So if you have like a Beckman's or one of those furniture companies that has a box truck, a single axle box truck, they can pull up there and load up some furniture if it's in the front part of their showroom, load on the truck, and they're fine then, right?
well, dollars to donuts, we're talking about semi-traffic that's going around there that's cutting it. That's what the intent was to
That's the
stop.
real,
That's the real problem, is where.
If there is a special delivery or something like that, they could get permission from the Board of Public Works for a special.
That's not gonna happen either. If somebody shows up
It's
on a
already gonna
Tuesday
be
with a
delivered
delivery,
gone
that's
by
right,
the
they'll,
time
they'll
they
be
do
in and
that.
out, yeah.
They could, but chances are that's not the case. And then they'll get a ticket and then kind of penalize them again. Well, we don't know what to do.
so if we amended B to no truck operating with 3 or more axles
Pulling a trailer.
shall be permitted on the Courthouse Square, eliminating the and no vehicle pulling a trailer.
I guess I'd almost want to talk to, to Kevin's point, talk to
The safety committee.
Find out, is that really what, to what Paul said, pulling a pickup truck with a trailer can easily be done, but the intent is to keep a semi off there. But a pickup truck, I don't know, I haven't done it with a trailer on the back, but if you can navigate that relatively easy, is it going to be an issue? I don't know, but I guess we need to really find out what their true intent was. Was it strictly to eliminate all trucks with trailers or simply semis? And it kind of sounds like what they're wanting to do is keep semis off the courthouse square, which I get. You know, there's no way they're gonna be able to make it around there.
That's the most immediate
Yeah.
Should we table
requirement.
I think
Should
probably,
we send it back to the safety committee?
yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I think that's what we
and
should
just-
do.
Yeah.
Have
Okay.
them clarify those questions.
And let me ask you guys, is anybody opposed to a pickup truck with a trailer?
I want to understand what their concerns are
Sure.
first.
Okay, but
I'm not opposed to it, but if they have a concern about it, I want to hear what it
Yeah,
is.
exactly, I agree 100%. So, yeah, let's send it back to them.
So, Chad, you made the motion and Kevin seconded. We'll make a motion to,
Table it?
Before we table it,
Okay.
we've got somebody in
Oh, we
the
do?
public that would like to make a comment.
council.
Sure.
Dan Crowline, 1366 Elmira Road. I have a few questions. One is the 5-ton limit. I just wanted to answer where that magic number came from, because technically speaking, depending on how you look at it, my truck weighs 4 ton, 5 ton if I have anything in the bed. And especially with which you haven't even discussed yet, Granville Spocker Hill, 15th Street going up there. If this passes, I can't drive up that hill. I mean, and otherwise, and also if you're looking at around the square pulling a trailer that knocks out all floats during the Strassenfest parade, if anybody's pulling a trailer, that's illegal. I mean, we pulled a trailer this past year with the construction. We bumped the curb, but it's still, half that lane was closed up. So, you know, there's a lot more that needs to be looked into before you pass this ordinance, especially with that 5-ton limit. I mean, a dually driving up 15th Street, clear violation. So look at it in both ways. I mean, also you look City of Jasper, dually dump trucks, or even a 1-ton dump truck, put any rock on it, can't go up and down the hill. I'm not saying, you know, it's going to do it. If you want semis, it needs to be more than 5 ton. 5 tons, only 10,000 pounds. That's a pickup truck with a little bit of weight on it. If you want semis, you know, you're looking at CDL range is 13 ton, 26,000 pounds. You know, you have to be able to, you know, if you're eliminating straight trucks or anything, you know, CDL range, that's fine. That's 13 tons, but not 5 tons. You got a big range of area between 5 ton and 13 ton. You know, like I said, I pull trailers. I mean, like I said, you know, my truck pulling a small trailer, I'm over 5 ton. And, you know, regular driver's license, you're done until 26,000 pounds even. You're annexing me out of the city, or out of downtown city of Jasper. If I have a lawnmower, I'm overweight. So I'm just, you know, there's a lot more to look into other than just cut and dry 5 ton. I'd like to know where they got that 5 ton number, because 5 tons ain't anything when it comes to a fully loaded truck. You know, yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to voice my opinion because, you know, like I said, you're annexing a lot of people, especially on 15th Street from 231 over there. That's my main way of going home. If I'm driving my truck, I'm out of weight basically. So that's all. I'm just wanting to speak my piece, and that there's a lot more to look into, other than, you know, like I said, that 5 ton number seems a little. I can see where you guys are coming from, where, you know, you don't want semis going through there. Well, 5 ton is not that number. It needs to be at least, you know, 10 ton. Well, I'm not going to hit 10 ton anytime soon. My truck won't carry 10 ton. But, you know, that's why I said there needs to be a little more homework when it comes to this ordinance, or in general when it comes to just cut and dry more than anything else.
Thank you
I
for your
hope I got my
comments,
point
Mr.
across than anything else. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dan?
Lisa, can I speak?
Let Renee talk.
Yes. Okay. I just wanted to point out that the weight limit, that 5-ton weight limit on 15th Street has been in place for years. That is not new to this draft of the ordinance. That's in place, and that is specifically recommended, as far back as when Ramey was in office. So that's been in place for a long time. And then with respect to the intention conversation, of course, you're more than welcome, and I will be happy to relay your comments to Chad and Jeff and Nathan and let them provide you with their thoughts. But I just wanted you to know that they did, in fact, discuss those issues and landed on the language that I put in the ordinance. That's it.
Thank you.
I guess when you look at it closer, the A, 5 tons, only applies to 15th Street and Green Street. It doesn't apply to B.
Right. And it's been limited all along. It has been for years.
But I'm just saying, in general, when it comes to the trailers around the square, you don't want to, like, with the downtown showdown, there's
Yeah,
just too
yeah.
much, open the air, basically, so,
Okay.
thank you, guys.
So really, it looks like B is what's been added to this ordinance. That part about around the square, that A, 1, and 2 were apparently still already part of this ordinance.
Mayor, I recommend we table it and get with the safety committee and get our questions answered and understand their feelings.
So,
You have to rescind their motions then.
Chad
Yeah, I will. I rescind my motion.
and Kevin?
Okay, I rescind the motion.
So at this point in time, we'll vote to table it. Do I need a motion?
I'll make a motion to table this.
I have a motion from Paul,
I'll second.
second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll table 2023-27.
Let's thank the scouts.
Would any of the scouts like some of these ordinances? Are you guys going back and studying any of this stuff, or? Tom?
Use your input.
Oh, Tom Livia, yes.
Thank you for
Coming.
Yeah.
Brad, we did see that you did 2 exams that are coming up for gas people. If you wanted to stick around and see if they got approved.
It's very interesting, thank you. Same response I got, huh? Sorry, Mayor.
Okay, no, that's fine. Ordinance number 2023-28. It's an ordinance permitting and regulating mobile food vendors. Could I have a motion to read the ordinance on the first reading in full or by title only?
Quick question for procedure on this one. Is this something we have to read on multiple things, or we can't do all 3 in one evening?
I understand that we wanted to do all, or we wanted to have multiple.
Split it? Okay. Well, I will make a motion to read by title only on the first reading.
I'll second that motion.
See, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would the clerk treasurer please read ordinance number 2023-28 by title only?
Ordinance number 2023-28, an ordinance permitting and regulating mobile food vendors in the city of Jasper, Indiana, amending section 3.26.
Could I have a motion to approve the ordinance on the first reading?
I'll make so motion.
I'll second.
Second from Nancy. Further discussion?
This is really just adding a food truck allowance at the disc golf course.
That's correct, at Ruxer Golf Course. We have no problem doing it at the Schrader Complex. We don't have any problem out at the Youth Sports Complex. We've got some designated areas around here from the Plan Commission that we've talked about in the past. That's the only reason I wanted to know if we could do it all in one evening. This is kind of a no-brainer. Just let them set up when their tournaments come through, so.
I think during the discussion, when we had our pre-meeting, we felt like it needed to go through
Yep, and that's fine.
second and third reading next month.
That's okay.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, ordinance number 2023-28 has passed. Next item on the agenda was a public hearing for 2023-22, which is the additional appropriations. Is there anyone from the public?
You have to open a public hearing? Oh, you did?
Yeah. Seeing no one from the public wanting to speak, Mayor, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right. Motion from Paul to close the public hearing. I have a second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay, public
Aye.
hearing is closed. Could I have a motion for the ordinance to be read in full or by title only?
Move to be read by title only.
Kevin, read by title only, and Chad, second.
I can read it by title only, but first I think we need to, my request is, this is for one reading only.
Could I have a motion to consider the ordinance for one reading only?
So moved. Paul?
Second.
Second from John. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now, could I have a motion and I have a second to read by title only. Kevin made the motion and Chad seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk Treasurer, please read ordinance number 2023-22 by title only.
Ordinance number 2023-22, an ordinance appropriating additional money for the city of Jasper, Indiana for the remainder of the year ending December 31st, 2023.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2023-22?
I'll make that motion.
A motion from Dave,
I'll second.
and a second from Paul. Further discussion?
These are we worked with the department heads to see what funds needed to be transferred for the remainder of the year. I think we do that once a year, or we're supposed to do it once a year. So we worked with the department heads, and they told us where they needed to move money around, where they might be short. And this was, obviously needed a public hearing, and it was noticed in the paper.
So the net of it is, it's moving from fund to fund.
Yes.
Any other discussion? If not, I have a motion from Dave and a second from Paul. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 2023-22 is passed. Open a public hearing for ordinance number 2023-23. That's budget ordinance. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to speak to this?
I'll also just note that this was noticed, the Form 3 was noticed to taxpayers and uploaded into Gateway.
And seeing no public comment, Mayor, I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
I have a motion. Paul to close the public hearing,
I'll second.
and we have a second from Chad. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, could I have a motion to read the ordinance on the first reading in full or by title only?
I'll make a motion to read by title only.
To read by title only. Second from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would the clerk treasurer please read the ordinance by title only?
Ordinance number 2023-23, an ordinance appropriating money for the city of Jasper, Indiana for the year 2024.
Could I have a motion to approve the ordinance in the first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Kevin and Chad? Any further discussion on this?
And Kirsten, I always like to ask, what is the total amount of the budget looking at?
While she's looking that up, I will again retort, we've all said it already, but our clerk treasurer and her staff, mayor and the department heads all did a fantastic job this year. Best year we've seen yet come here, so in front of us getting this budget together and prepared.
The total appropriations are $26,962,505.
Any other questions?
Sir.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's passed. On first reading.
On that one, will we do the second and third readings next month, or one reading next month and one the next?
We have to have it adopted in October, so we'll do the second and third at the next.
Next is ordinance number 2023-24. It's an ordinance levying taxes and fixing the rate of taxation for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024. Could I have a motion to read the ordinance on first reading in full or by title only?
I'll make the motion to read by title only, please, Mayor.
Paul,
Second.
John. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Will the clerk treasurer please read ordinance number 2023-24 by title only?
Ordinance number 2023-24, an ordinance levying taxes and fixing the rate of taxation for the city of Jasper, Indiana for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2024.
Could I have a motion to approve the ordinance on the first reading?
I'll make that motion.
Kevin?
I'll second it.
Second from Dave. Further discussion.
I just passed around a sheet to show you in comparison the rate from 2023 to 2024. I was told that you guys might like to see that. And basically, these are the numbers that were generated when we punched in what we would need to fund our budget, so.
Kirsten, for the public, you might want to say these out loud, what these are, and for the media also.
For the general fund, .5879. For park and recreation, .3322. For cum cap development, .0450. For cumulative fire special, .0100. Fire pension, .0063, and then debt service, .0754, for a total of 1.0568%.
You might want to let them know what we had in 2023 as well.
Sure.
Total rate.
Total rate for 2023 was 1.1624.
So with all this progress, all these projects we're getting done and fully funding our budget, we are 10.56 cents less per $100 assessed value coming up next year. Just short of 11 cents in a drop. So again, I've said it before, but congratulations, you guys did a great job, Mayor, department leaders, clerk treasurer, and staff. I think that was the easiest year we've ever had to sit down and go through these numbers. Thank you.
With that, I've had a motion from Kevin and a second from Dave to approve the ordinance on the first reading. Any other discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 2023-24 is passed. Next, there is a holiday schedule proposed for 2024. It's unbelievable that we have to do that at this point in time, but it's that time. It's just a few months away, nearing the end of the year, unfortunately. So,
Changes on that, is there, Mayor?
I don't think there is.
Same as last year.
Pretty well.
I'm sure it was an oversight, but I did not see Phil Mundy's birthday on there.
Yeah. And you spelled my name wrong, by the way, on this one here, so that's, there's one L in Philip.
I'll make a motion to approve the holiday schedule, Mayor.
Okay. From John,
I'll second.
Second from Dave. Any further discussion? Lisa, was there anything that really changed from the previous year?
No, they're all the same holidays. They just may have listed on a different day, and then I had Gail look over it too as far as like what day it was on.
Which day it shifts to, if it's on? Okay.
But otherwise, it's all the same holidays.
Thank you. So I have a motion from John, second from Dave. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, adopted that. And there were two gas contractor license that were referred to a little bit earlier in the meeting. Yes, let's do. We have Craig Klein and
Jay Geisler.
Jay Geisler.
Both have outstanding scores.
They had great scores.
Make a motion that we approve the gas contractor's license, the two applications.
I have a motion from Kevin to approve them both.
I'll second.
Second from Dave. Further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, the scores have definitely gone up over the years. You know, I think it's a good thing.
We used to be debating 78s and 76s.
3 out of 4 was not good in my opinion.
No.
Okay, now we have on the agenda the opioid fund discussion. And we'd asked some members of the Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council, Logan Jones, who's also a Jasper Police Department officer, to come forward and talk a little bit about how.
Mayor, is it all right if I approach as well?
Sure.
I think I know most of you.
Breathe.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead and identify yourselves, though.
I'm Logan Jones.
I'm the current sitting chair of the Substance Abuse Council.
So basically, we were approached about this opioid settlement fund. It was given to the city and the county. There's a large sum of money. And we were approached that maybe we might be the best place for this money to go to, and to be able to, because we do our grant process, and a lot of different entities in the city and county come to us and apply for grants for substance abuse. And I don't know if you guys know much about what we do, but I'm just going to read this so it comes off a little clearer. The mission is to reduce substance abuse and the problems associated with substance abuse in Du Bois County, youth and adults, in order to enhance family and community life. And so just a little background, every county in the state should have a substance abuse council per state statute. So that's how Du Bois County has theirs created. I'm not sure how far back it goes, but you might be more.
Nancy's been there since the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Nancy,
was gonna say Nancy.
she's a part of it. I'm actually on the executive committee. I'm the law enforcement representative, and there's a bunch here as well.
Yes.
So, if you want to tell who they are.
Sure. Terry Tanner is our current treasurer. And who else? Candy Neal is our youth representative as the coordinator for CARES.
And our main goal is to use our funding to financially support community organizations that are working to address substance abuses and the impact that substance abuse has on the community. We currently get part of our fees from substance abuse related court fees, OWIs, possession charges, and stuff like that.
If you want, I can.
Yeah, go right ahead. Yep.
Okay. So I feel like I've practiced this speech a few more times than Logan, but the Substance Abuse Council is what's called a local coordinating council. He's correct that per state statute, every county in the state of Indiana is supposed to have a local coordinating council or an LCC operating. So where we get our funding currently, per state statute, anyone who's convicted of a substance abuse related offense in Du Bois County, so that could be, like Logan alluded to, possession, OWI, any of those types of offenses, part of their court costs have been ordered to come to a fund that only we can touch. So that is how things have been in the past, but recently there's been some concern that that fund is going to be dwindling, and there's a few reasons for that. So the current sitting judges get to decide how those court fees are dispersed. So they can decide, you know, if someone is ordered to complete probation, if the probation user fees come out first, and they do. They can decide if they have a corrections program, if that funding comes out first. So we have moved down the priority list, which can impact our ability to receive that funding, as well as, I'm not sure how familiar you all are with Criminal Rule 26, but it changes the way that bonds and bails are set. And so what happens then, we have less people paying larger amounts of that money. So we're not seeing the court user fees come in the way that we used to. So there's been concern that happened a few years ago. We haven't quite felt it yet, but that our funding will be dwindling.
Annual budget, what do you get?
Sure. So we've been averaging around $40,000. So that includes somewhere in the $30,000 range of user fees, as well as if we have anything from the previous year that rolls over as well.
And then what's our amount of money that we're going, do you know, Kirsten?
And I trust you guys are well aware too that Okra now has some monies available, some grant monies available for recovery and addiction remediation.
Yeah, so because we are a part of the county government and part of the organization, the way that the LCC is structured, currently the only way we're getting funding is user fees. But I think we've been aware for several years that we may have to look for other sources as our funding dwindles.
Contact us at Region 15 in Ferdinand. Nathan Held would be your point person there to get a hold of. This is some new monies that just became available over the summer after July for, yeah, perfect.
And then your executive committee decides through they grant, people request grants from you, and then you decide, is that the process?
We actually are doing that on Friday for this
It's a
year.
busy week for the Substance Abuse Council.
So people come in and they give a 15, 20-minute presentation of why they want these funds and what they're going to use them for, and so on. And we have it broken down. Prevention, education is one category, treatment, intervention, and criminal justice services. So.
How many different groups do you actually grant them to?
So last year it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Somewhere between 10 and 15 has been the standard. Sure, absolutely. So some of the highlights from last year, we were able to fund substance abuse education for the probation department. We bought all of JPD tactical gloves, so when they're doing pat-downs and searches, they have a less risk of being stuck by needles or touching substances that they shouldn't be touching. We've also bought materials for use in programming, not only for probation, but for corrections as well. We bought Dove houses. Well, we kind of equipped their media room so the Doves are able to attend training from indie service providers. So if there are not therapists locally that can provide like their, some of their treatment is 3 to 9 hours a week. And so that's a big chunk. They're able to zoom in and then actually attend those trainings with indie participants. So we did that. Do you want me to keep going? No. Okay, I can.
I think,
So if we provide this for you guys to manage and you still get some of the user fees, this enable you to even expand further, right?
Yeah, we actually have discussed this at meetings that I think we have a young core of people on the council, and I think there's a lot more people joining the council trying to, that's the whole point of this, is to, get other entities together and discuss things, and we actually are growing every year, I think, and with Criminal Rule 26, cutting the fees, and I was going somewhere with that.
You were going somewhere solid, but I'll pick up where you left off.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So this year, as well as the last 2 years, we had way more ask than we have funds to give. So for example, this year, I haven't calculated the exact number, but we're somewhere over $20,000 that we're being asked that we don't have the funds to provide.
There you go.
And that's happened the last couple of years, that we've had to either deny grants completely or partially fund grants because of financial limitations. So I do agree that if we're able to use this funding, we would be able to, I told Logan, I was going through the packet he handed me, and I'm like, the possibilities are just awesome.
We don't know.
Going with that.
We don't know exactly what the money's going to be every year.
Kevin, I can tell you, I can't tell you exactly. It is an estimate, but our total unrestricted share, and it looks like we'll receive payments until 2038. Our total unrestricted share is $103,000, and our total restricted share is $276,000 over the course of.
But what does that break down to?
10 to 15. in
10 to 15 a year?
Renee's put that.
Okay.
Though I did, at the AIM conference, I did go to the seminar on the settlement, and I believe, first of all, it said you have to spend the money to save lives, use evidence to guide spending, invest in youth prevention, focus on racial equity, and develop a fair and transparent process for where to spend the funds. But I'm pretty sure that these funds also, and maybe it's the restricted, I'm not sure which one, have to be spent on opioid, let's say, treatment or education. So it has to be specific to the opioid. That's why the settlement's here. So if we grant you the opportunity to have these funds, there would also be restrictions on how those funds could be spent.
I think we still have to, if this is the direction that you decide to go, we still have to determine how we can go about giving you the funding, because there are some pretty strict rules about how I have to report what the money has been used for. And I do believe, in speaking with Renee, that she does feel like we can, through an interlocal agreement or something like that, that we could potentially achieve this goal, but it won't be as easy as just, here, you can have this money.
And I think,
And that was the point of coming tonight, was to come here and kind of present it and just get the conversation going.
And I think internally we sat down, which is how this all came about, and tried to identify how we could, we've had other entities ask for the money, how we could potentially find a way to use the money to meet everyone's needs, or to meet, the different entities' needs, without having to necessarily be the entity that determines who gets the money.
like if you recall, LifeSpring, though, was here also. And that's-
And I think what we
Yeah, so
decided
I wanna
was.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say two things. So the first thing is that there is a pretty strenuous process. Like Logan alluded to, you have to fill out a written grant application. We do then require you to come and do a verbal grant application, which gives you the opportunity not only to articulate on what you're asking for, but the entire executive committee is there to ask you follow-up questions. We have been moving as a council to only funding things that are evidence-based. So it is not necessarily, if you apply for a substance abuse council grant, you're getting it. And if you were to receive the funds, it could also be partial funds. And we do require internally. So like, for example, Logan last year applied for the tactical gloves. We awarded that grant. He did have to come to a follow-up meeting and provide a progress report, not only for State Board of Accounts to prove that that funding was spent, but also talk about, okay, how many guys were equipped with those gloves? What kind of cases did they run into? What's the feedback you heard? We want to know that the money we're granting out is going to the right places and being used for the right things. The second thing is, I know Logan is our community liaison, and he's a perfect fit, right? He works for the city. He's part of the council. I sweet-talked him into being the law enforcement rep, so he kind of has his feet split between those two things. So what I was going to say is, Logan had alluded that Renee stated that there are both restricted and abatement funds. And so we actually looked through, that's what I was looking through earlier, the list of abatement funds. And I'm telling you, half of these things we already fund. Things like medication collection is in there, stuff that we're already funding. And I think the ability to expand on what we are already funding through our process, which, like you had said, handing it over to us, all of the organizations that are asking you for money can apply through us.
And I
Right?
think that
We've
was-
funded LifeSpring before.
That was
So
our
I think
thought
it's
in
a really
discussion.
good move to be able to say,
So-
the council does this process.
because there is, let's say, the State Board of Accounts or a method, so it could be that we're aware of how much money it would be. You do the grant application, and then after those grants are awarded, then you make that transfer. We're not just going to plunk this money in your account.
Process that I am involved in.
Yeah.
What grant they give, because I will have to report that back.
So you have all the information.
Right.
Paperwork on that.
Kirsten and I already have a good working relationship, so that's good.
And I think, to your point, and Jenna already touched on it, but I think internally we viewed this as a way that we could possibly reach all the entities that were asking us, instead of just picking one.
I can't imagine that I have a can't speak for everybody here, but you're gonna be way more in tune with all these programs and
That's right.
all the end users than what I am, sitting in this chair here, so, yeah, that's.
I mean, I'm also a local therapist and rooted counseling and consulting in Jasper, but I also work at corrections, teach programming. So I'm very aware of what's already in the community and making sure we're not duplicating efforts, make sure we're building on the skills we already have.
And if you can get some of this money from us, or a large portion of it, maybe that frees up some of your normal budget to go after some matching fund grants to increase this, without having to worry about who's gonna get these monies from where, so.
All three categories we talked about, I mean, there was approximately $10,000 per category that was split evenly, and try to be as fair as we can and get it across the board, but with the extra funding, you know, it could be, you know, the possibilities are endless on it. And also this abatement, this came from the Attorney General's website, so that's why we've got it printed out and went through and highlighted each one, and it was pretty crazy to see that we are already doing a bunch of this, and there's some other things on here that she made a lot of notes.
I had a lot of ideas already.
Things that we, you know, haven't even been able to address because of the limitations of the funding, so.
And these funds would have some limitations also, so you'd have to know that and follow those guidelines.
And I think that it would be something that we would have to discuss within our own executive committee, but I know that some of the other LCCs in the state have more than one grant cycle. So if it needed to be a specialized grant cycle, that's something that we could potentially discuss as well.
I think knowing that there's so many organizations that are requesting funding, and Kirsten said, and Nancy's been on the Substance Abuse Council since it started. I was on it for a while. Logan is our city representative now, but they get a lot of requests, and they're doing a lot of good. They work with all the organizations to try to help in this area.
Way to go.
They know it better than we do.
Absolutely.
The opioid, we talk about it has to go to an opioid entity or however it's phrased. I mean, there's not just, I just want to point out, in Du Bois County, there's not some organization or entity that specifically does just opioids. It's drugs in general, or substance abuse, or recovery, and it lumps it all together. For drugs, it would be all drugs, including opioids. So to get that language of just opioid, I mean, everything in here would fall into that. So just wanted to point that out as well.
The language in the abatement funding does say, like, it either includes like opiate and substance use disorder, which is all of them, right, or mental health concerns. So it does have some vague language to wherever some of the grants that aren't necessarily just funding opiates, right? Like probation doesn't just see people who have an opiate problem, right, and who have broken the law from using opiates.
There's a naloxone, Narcan section, first responders, there's mental health, CIT, we talked about the CIT program.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that, you know, it could go towards if it's planned right and, you know, if people want to jump on it, so.
Has the state sent any of this money down yet at this point in time? They have, okay.
Yes. We have about 46 or 42.
Okay. Do we need a resolution, a future resolution addressing this then? Or?
I think today was just a discussion.
It was just a discussion today to kind of enlighten you on what Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council does and the possibility. But, you know, there's others that are coming at us too.
To my opinion, this is the best presentation I've heard yet, that they're able to help all the others that are coming at us as well.
I would direct the city attorney to draw up a resolution maybe for the next meeting then.
Yep.
We will. I'll continue to work with State Board of Accounts and also the auditor at the county, because the Substance Abuse Council, all their claims does go through the county budget. So we'll figure out a way.
I'm also more than happy to provide any additional information. I'll make sure Kirsten has my updated contact information, but like our funding from the last couple years, any questions you have about the organization, please feel free to reach out. You can reach out to Logan too, but he might then call me.
One of you wait.
Yeah.
One last thing, I know there was some discussion, but I don't know what the realistic possibility would be. We talked about $19,000 over what we're able to get. I don't know how quickly for this year's grant, I don't know how quickly we can get all, I mean, what's the timetable? Because we're gonna be hearing grants in 2 days.
I would say that it'd probably next year, because it would go to, if it went to ordinance, it would be first reading in October, possibly second and third in November.
And we want to establish that memorandum of understanding as well, so, yeah.
Cut checks till November anyway, so.
We're government, we don't move that fast.
We'll keep you posted about.
thanks, yeah.
How's that?
Any questions for us?
Did a fine job.
I do appreciate what you're doing, and for all the members of the Substance Abuse Council and those associated, Du Bois County Cares and others, they're all doing good work for us.
Definitely want to make sure on the record that we do appreciate Logan Jones's involvement. I have been tracking down law enforcement for almost 3 years, and so getting him in this role was great. I saw Chief Schmidt. I told him, I said, Logan, you should be expecting a raise coming your way. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And if council's in agreement, we'll continue to move down that path then, to where we get a resolution, as you asked. Next is the Reach Alert presentation. Is this Ken? Thanks for being here the whole time, Ken.
First of all, we got to start with an apology for you having to wait so long.
Yeah.
Well, truthfully on that, he was put last, and then Kirsten called me that we could move him up. But I really thought it'd be interesting for Ken to hear a lot of the things that we have going on in the cities, so he could relate some of his presentation even to some of the things that we were talking about this evening.
I was hoping to see pricing before we put him on the tail end of the docket this evening.
I had previously given you some of that.
Good evening. My name is Ken Weber, and I am the Chief Operating Officer for Reach Alert. Reach Alert is a communication platform that enables our clients to quickly communicate with their constituents via text, voice, or email. We are the only alert and notification provider that is endorsed by AIM, the Kentucky League of Cities, Tennessee Municipal League, and the reason I'm here tonight is to tell you how Reach can impact Jasper. About 7 or 8 weeks ago, we had some very severe storms roll through my town. And the problem was the storm happened in the early morning hours. It rolled up from the southwest. The weather siren that we have is 1/4 mile from our house due north. The wind directed the sound away from us, and we did not know that the sirens went off. And within 1 minute, my cell phone, which was sitting on my bedside table, rang, and I looked at it. I had a text message that said, "We have a tornado warning, seek shelter immediately." So we were able to, even though we didn't hear the weather sirens, we were able to get that message. We had a client recently, Tompkinsville, Kentucky, send out an alert that said that if you live within 1/2 mile of the water treatment plant, you need to evacuate the area as quickly as possible due to a chlorine gas leak. Now, my question to you is, do you have a mechanism in place that you could immediately communicate with your residents and let them know what the situation is and to be able to direct their action so that, let's just say I was at work and I got that, the chlorine gas alert. I would know that, one, I'm going to call home to make sure everybody gets that message. And the other thing is, I'm not going to be driving into harm's way. And if I do live there, I'm going to be getting out of there. So what we do is we give you the ability to direct your people's actions. The interesting thing is, those are 2 examples of emergency alerts. We serve hundreds and hundreds of municipalities. For every one emergency alert, there are at least 500 more routine but timely bits of information. And it's things like, we have a broken water main on Main Street. People who live in this area will be impacted. Crews have been dispatched, and there will be a boil water advisory in effect. It could be that the police have had a major accident and a certain intersection is going to be closed down, and a power pole was taken out. And so some people will experience a loss of power. And in a lot of instances, it's just letting me know that you're aware of a problem, because it's not funny if you're the clerk treasurer or something and somebody's calling you and saying, "How come my garbage didn't get picked up today?" Well, it snowed 6 inches last night and the trucks couldn't make it down the road. To be able to put a message out there that says, this is the situation, it will preclude a number of calls coming in that somebody's got to answer and take care of it. So what Reach Alert basically does is it gives you the ability to craft that message, to be able to send it out to your residents and keep them in the loop as to what's going on and what will directly impact them. That's my elevator speech. And what we do too that is kind of unique is we have clients that are much bigger than Jasper, and we have clients that are much smaller than you folks. One of my favorite was Argus, very small town, only a couple hundred households and everything. But what we do is we know that in Jasper, there are approximately 6,250 households and businesses. This is something I got from AIM. Now, whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. But we know that you're not going to get everybody to register. No matter what you do, people won't always register. So what we do is we provide you with tiered pricing. And we say, of those 6,250, the first 2,000, here's what the price is going to be. And if you never get above 2,000 households, the price doesn't go up. It stays within that tier structure. And for each household, you can register as many phone numbers and email addresses as you want to. So I get a text, a voice, and an email. My wife gets a text and an email, and I have 2 adult sons who all they do is text. So that's 7 points of contact, but it's only considered as one household. So again, you're only paying for the service that you're actually using. And the number of entities within the city that can use it include the clerk treasurer's office, the health department, the police department, the utilities. And so there are a lot of people who pitch in and have advantage of this database of contact information that you can immediately share timely information with.
Okay, does the, I see it, you have an administrator. Where does this system sits, like the police station?
It's cloud-based.
Cloud-based, okay.
Yes, sir. And then, so what would happen is you would set up your own account. And so all you need is a computer or a smartphone. No matter where you are in the country, in the world, you have access to it and you can send messages out. And you can have as many administrators as you want. And one of the things that I liked about the tornado warning was you can develop templates. So whether it's police dispatch, it's somebody from the mayor's office, it's whomever, they have a made template so that we have talked with legal, and when we put information out there, when we say that a telephone pole has been knocked down and power lines are down, avoid the area, we've had some times when the city council will say, wait a minute, you can't do that. That's going to encourage people to come out here. You've got to word it this way. And so you can already have these pre-canned messages so that when there is a tornado warning or something like that, you just go in, select the template, and within literally 60 seconds from the time you get to your computer, you log in, you pull up the message, and you send it out. Within that 1 60-second increment, you have done everything to initiate the action to get that message out there.
When they receive this, let's say it goes to their phone, 2 o'clock in the morning, how will it wake them up? Does it have a?
Well, I mean, it's like with my cell phone, when I get a voice call, the phone rings. If I get a text message, it's like a French horn.
Okay.
That kind of gets on your nerves. So, I mean, so it will get people's attention. And the one thing that we try to do too is the service is no good if you don't use it. And if no one registers, there's no point in having it. So what we do is we give you the pricing. It's all guaranteed for 3 years. We only have a 12-month contract. So if at the end of the first year, you've got 14 households signed up, there's no point in continuing with it. But the reality is we try to make this as user-friendly as possible. People can go online and register. People like my mother who do not have a computer, they can call our toll-free number and we will register them. And then the third way to do that is, and I don't know if Jasper would do this or not, but smaller towns do it. When you come in to pay your utility bill, the utility clerks know everybody in town. And so they can say, Mr. Jones, while you're here, let me register you for Reach Alert. And so that way, The next time you all send out a message, the phone's going to ring and it's going to say Jasper alert, and it's going to read the message off to them. And for good measure, it's going to do it a second time to make sure that they get that message.
Ken, to make sure I understand here, it would send out a general message to everybody that's signed up. You can't specifically, as an example, if there's a water leak out in Holy Family.
Okay? You can send messages to the entire town. You can send messages to specific streets or combinations of streets. You can send messages to individual addresses if you want.
Oh.
You can form as many groups as you want.
Is it user-friendly enough that, like, you're probably only going to have certain administrators, like the street department person that says, okay, if there's a police department, yeah, let's use that as an example. If there's a police issue on the north side of town and on Leslie Drive out there, you could send it to the ones out on Leslie.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not that you all would do this, but I live in a smaller town. It's only got about 700 or 800 households. And we got a reach alert at 7 o'clock in the morning. And it said, folks, we've had a rash of break-ins in garages and cars. Please lock your all's cars. And 10 minutes later, we got another message saying, hey, we have a suspect who's wearing red pants and a white shirt that was seen on Cardinal Drive. 10 minutes later, they said, we've apprehended a person who was doing all the break-ins. And while we were chasing him, he had a gun and he threw it in somebody's backyard. So would you please look in your backyard and call the police? So over a 45-minute period of time, we had 4 messages. They identified a problem, they identified the suspect, they captured the person, and they recovered all of the stolen merchandise. And the only other way that we had of letting people know this is in the quarterly newsletter. We would say, hey, back in July, we had a rash of break-ins. Well, with Reach Alert, you can put it out there in real time and you can get people's attention. And so I'm not saying that that's something that you all would want to do, but we have a lot of police departments that use Reach Alert, and a lot of times what they'll do is they have their own group, their own police department group, and they can communicate with them only about certain situations before they would go to the general public.
So is Reach Alert then, everything that we do would go through your system?
What would happen is you control the content 100%. And you would make up the alerts. You would just log in, type the alert, decide who you want it to go to, and then hit the send button. So, I mean, literally, when I do the training, before I even get to tell you how to send an alert, you see the big red button, and you've already figured it out. But we kind of walk through that, and people get very good at that in a very short period of time.
So is there any way this wouldn't work? I mean,
there's always a possibility that something like that could happen. Let's say the power goes out. Well, you don't have an internet connection, but I still got a cell phone. And as long as I have a cell phone tower, I can still send that message out. Now, if you have a landline at home, you may not get that message. But if you have a cell phone, which most people have cell phones now, and landlines are kind of going away, that ensures that message can go out. I don't want to say it's 100% fail-proof, but it's very close.
So it could ring into a landline also?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to this, a lot of pros, and then the challenges in administering it is the big challenge, and whether it's dispatch or who is responsible for sending those messages out and gleaning that. You don't want to just, like, I get an Amber Alert for northern Indiana, and I...
Mm-hmm. And one of the things is, I mean, when I say that for every one true emergency, there are 500 more general alerts. Let's just say we're going to have the 4th of July parade that's going to start at noon this Saturday. Well, at about 11 o'clock, there's a thunderstorm, so we can't really have the parade. So you send out a Reach Alert that says, hey, the thunderstorm is going to roll through. We're going to reconvene at 2 o'clock and have this. I mean, it's very simple. That's not an emergency by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something that's important for the people to know. And we just, I was looking at Palmyra. They sent out an alert because they were lowering the water level in the water towers so they could do some routine maintenance. And they said you may experience low water pressure. And so, I get in the shower and turn the shower on, and I'm not getting any water pressure. The first thing I'm going to do is call the plumber. Well, it's not my issue, but by them sending that message out and being proactive, I knew what the situation was. And there's also times where we're going to have to shut the water off to put a new valve in or something. So I know that at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, I better be having everything set up because I know I'm not going to have water for the next 2 or 3 hours.
Several weeks ago, there was an incident over in Ferdinand where I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was a police deal and a guy was on the run and that kind of stuff. And I was just curious, how did they alert, Kathy, you're here, and Jenna, you live in Ferdinand. How were you alerted that that incident was going on and that after, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, they finally captured the guy? But in the meantime, I imagine the town, people were all like nervous because this guy was somewhere and no one knew where he was.
So I will tell you, people that kept showing up and driving through the perimeter, some with guns, thinking they're gonna help. So my personal experience was there wasn't an effective way to communicate that. I was out detailing my car, all the dogs out there, like, right for the murdering, right? Like, I didn't know. My husband is a police officer in Ferdinand. He was working nights. He was asleep in the basement. He didn't know. I found out from my mother, who got her haircut in Jasper, told by her
That's it, beauticians.
If you'd had this system, everyone could have been alerted, stay inside. You have this kind of system?
Reach alert.
Got to sign up.
Really?
And one of the things is, I know like the Richmond, Kentucky Police Department, they will, if that's something like that happens and they have the mugshot or something, they can just put a link in there so that when you get a text message, you just touch the link and it takes you right straight to their website and there's this picture. So, I mean, you can do things like that as well.
Are you guys hardwired into the National Weather Service? So if there is.
You know what? Yes and no.
If there's a.
We're not anymore because at 2 o'clock in the morning, the Weather Service sends out a frost warning. And you get awakened at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, the bad thing is, at 2:10, they send that alert out again. And so it's like, well, wait a minute now. I'm going to opt out because this is getting to be more of a pain. So what happens is, and our cities have found out that when police dispatch or whomever that entity is, here's the message. They say, we don't need to pass this along. Or there is a flash flood advisory for this area, and you can send that out.
And who is typically an administrator in a city or town?
It's funny because in some instances, it's very rarely the mayor, but it's usually police dispatch, it's the utility supervisor, and
Street department.
street department. Those are typically the three, and at the clerk treasurer's office. So it's usually those 4 people. And like I say, you can send out messages saying, hey, tax bills went out, and just so you know, if you pay by the end of the month, you get a 3% discount.
Where do you live?
Question is, my question then is, if something is missed, is that not a liability for the city?
The way we look at it is people say, hey, we have Facebook. Facebook doesn't really get the message out to people. And this is just an adjunct to whatever it is that you all have in place. People say, well, we have a radio station. And to be honest with you, when's the last time you listened to the radio station? Okay, well, see, I listen to Sirius Radio. So, I mean, I'm listening to music. I'm not listening to the local news and everything. So a lot of times when I'm in Louisville and I hear the sirens go off, I'm hoping that it's the first Tuesday of the month at noon. Because if it's not, I have no idea what's going on. And so with Reach Alert again, you can tell them what's going on. It's a chlorine gas leak, or it's whatever this is. It's a train derailment. And even though it's a train derailment, there are no hazardous chemicals, so there's nothing to worry about. I'm sorry.
I just am curious then as to, like you said, the clerk treasurer, I mean.
Or your office. I mean, somebody that you would appoint.
I don't know about the tornado. How am I?
Well, and that's one of the things that kind of makes you sit down. One of our clients is Lawrenceburg, and we sat down with all the first responders. So they have mass shooting protocols, and it is kicked off by a Reach Alert being sent to this group, and the group consists of whomever is in the first responders, and then everybody has their role to play. So it's almost like it forces you to figure out, how are we going to handle this situation? How much information do we want to really put out there? I mean, we want to be transparent, but we don't want to, incite mass hysteria.
That leads me to another conference I went to at the AIM conference, and it was on communication, and we could tie this in. It wasn't him. We'd met several years ago at the AIM conference, but it was again about having that communication plan. What if something did happen? And this would only just be a part of that communication plan, along with how to handle a press conference and whatever else you might need for that.
And just so you know, too, I mean, what we would do is, let's just say the 6,250 households and businesses is accurate. The first tier is the first 2,000 accounts. That would cost $3,900. And that would be what the first year's invoice would be to you all. And let's just say you sign up 4,000 households the first year. Well, that then would not be charged to you all until the second year if you decide to renew the contract. And at that point, you would look at the tier that represents 4,000 households. And so you know going in what the costs are. And you're not, again, paying for the entire town if you're not getting the entire town's participation.
What's typical in you guys? Do you see 50% penetration,
It's amazing.
70?
It's amazing. We developed Reach Alert because of the shootings on the campus of Virginia Tech. We had clients who called us and said, hey, we realize we need to be able to talk to our employees, our students, our members. Virginia Tech had 40%. Today, 40% participation. And shortly thereafter that, when they got an alert and notification service, they still didn't have. I mean, you would think that if anybody would, they'd have 110%. So we have some cities that Reach Alert is the only way they have of communicating, and so they have like 95%. We have other cities that are 25 to 30%.
Does the city pay for all this, or do they charge?
What happens is we would send the invoice to the clerk treasurer, and the clerk treasurer says, okay, police, it's $5,000. You pay $1,000, utility, you pay $1,000, however you all want to do it, that's up to you. But I mean, I don't know if you all have a health department, but sometimes, I mean, COVID's coming back, and you can say, hey, there's going to be a clinic this week for, free flu shots and free COVID shots. I mean, come down and do that. I mean, so it's just different entities can use the service. And the whole idea is you don't want to spam people with too much information, but at the same time, you want to be transparent and you want to let people know that we listen to them and they're being kept in the loop.
I just think it was a great communication tool, and as Phil just said, if that amount saves one life, I mean, it would be worth it. And what really got me back on was those tornadoes that went through the northern part of town, and 3 of our sirens were not working, nor were the backup batteries working on those. And then it come to find out, though, I was told the sirens are not even meant to be heard inside of your house. They're only, well, who is outside at 2 o'clock
in the morning
or something if a tornado goes through? So to me, the sirens are a system that we need to be looking at something way different. And we don't even have the television interrupters anymore. So that would be another way, but we don't even have that anymore.
That's where the EMA has been recommending for several years that we go to NOAA radios.
Yeah, that's true. And they did, yeah.
These are something that should be in every home.
Right, right.
And you got to think, too, my mother's not going to have that in her house. But if her phone rings, it's going to wake her up and she's going to answer it and she's going to know what's going on. So.
In the case of that last tornado, even cell phone coverage wasn't available for a lot of the area that was hit. So. I mean, there's so many factors that go into that, especially when you get in the rural areas. But here in the city, and we talk about geofencing and trying to contain messages that go out and how we might be able to incorporate better safety protocol. I think this deserves some additional research and consideration. How it might work, I know Paul was saying if we had a utility outage or something, that it's a good way to get the message out that there's something going on. And
I know one of our clients is IMBA. I don't know.
we're an IMPA community.
Okay. So, I mean, they use that to be able to communicate with.
Can we be part of their sign-up?
They do have that. And if you all remember, you've already got 4 or 5 people who are signed up who will be getting those messages in the event. Because, I mean, I just saw something that went by that said that the load was heavier than expected, and they're not at the point of asking for voluntary cutbacks yet, but that might be a possibility. So, again, those are things that you can communicate with your people as well.
I know this is an area that it's going to require, the challenge is not the technology as much as it is the administration. That who's going to be at point within the departments to be sending those messages out at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You know, but then there are at times where maybe the street department's doing something, and then we'll ask them, have you put a note or knocked on every door? And this way, they could just simply send this message out, and they wouldn't have to take the time to put that note on the door. If they're signed up.
Not signed up, they're still going to put a note on every door.
And signing up, I always tell people, it's like church visitation. I can visit you once, and I get you to come to church with me. I might have to talk to you 10 times before I get you to come to church with me. I mean, and some people will never do it, and we realize that. So, I mean, it's just.
We have a serious challenge about communication. I mean, we used to have a great newspaper in Jasper. We don't anymore. We have Verdon News, which a lot of people here get, and we have a pretty nice radio station, but we get complaints all the time about our communication, that we don't communicate well enough, so.
That's true. People don't know what's going on.
Again, it's a 12-month contract, and at the end of 12 months, if you say, we love it, we know what it's going to be, we want to continue with it, we do 12 months rather than 3 years because we have a 98% retention rate. When people start using Reach Alert, they don't leave because nobody can touch our pricing, nobody can touch our service, and the platform just flat out performs.
Would you guys market this, or is this something we put in a utility?
What we would do is we would provide you with the information. We give you a letter, and the letter is something that could go out to residents, and it says, here's the service we're going to use, here's how we're going to use it, and here's how you register. And so it kind of lets them know what's going on.
About how long do you call it, like a trial period where you're getting people registered for it?
Well, I mean, what we do is we know that I would assume that you all would have more than 2,000 accounts in the first year. But we're going to cap it at the price, at that tier 1 pricing for that, anticipating that in year 2, we move into tier 2 or tier 3. But again, you all would know what those prices are, and you wouldn't go into those tiers until the demand was actually there.
And if the council approves this, funds it, how quickly can it be implemented from that point?
By lunchtime tomorrow.
If we have this.
And then you mentioned training. How long does training?
I get long-winded, so it's about 20 to 30 minutes. So, I mean, it's very simple, it's very intuitive, and I don't have a problem with coming here and you say, okay, we got 3 different people or 4 different people that we want to do it, and we can do it all at the same time. And it's just a very simple, intuitive service that, people, you're not tied into a long-term commitment on it.
Appreciate your presentation and taking the time and wading through all.
It's no problem.
And I believe that we'd have to do some research and come back. I'm sorry?
I just was gonna ask, do you have any counties that an entire county is on the system that could use that way as well?
On Monday at 1 o'clock, Whitley County, I'm doing a demonstration with them. It was kind of funny because I said, I don't know why you want to do this. You're already using it. But it's Whitley County, Kentucky that's using it. So, and then, and I think in Whitley County, Cherubusco is there. They're one of our clients. And South Whitley, we've just given them the proposal as well. So, I mean, it's just, we serve about 100 cities throughout Indiana right now, in towns.
And that was part of the debate we've had before, is where does it reside? Does it reside with the county or the city, and there is.
But a lot of times, if you have a water line break right out here, the county says, that's not an emergency. Well,
About zoning it, it seems like it could be zoned, like the county thing can be zoned to the different communities. Although again, when an escaped convict's on the loose, everybody needs to know that.
if you have a
Thank you, Ken. We appreciate you making the time.
Time. Good to bring that back in, Nancy. Thank you for arranging that. I believe that we'll have to do some research with some of the departments and how they see it working together.
We probably ought to talk to the county as well. Our people first, and then we can move to the county.
It could be that if we implemented it, we did it citywide first, and then show how great of a communication tool it is, and then maybe the county would somehow buy into it. I don't know.
Any other business come before the council? Okay. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
You got it? Paul's got it.
Paul made the motion. Need a second? Kevin second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.